is going on, guys? It is another episode of the train station, and I'm pretty pumped about that. Look who's back.
I watched from Florida, and I tried to type last week, but it's way harder being on that side of the screen than it is being on this side of the screen.
Right.
I'm happy to be back.
Were you on a mobile device?
I was on my cell phone, yeah. And I may have been under a tiki hut.
Yeah. Doesn't make it any better. In this episode, we're going to talk about some puppy training basics and some of the things that you can do in the first week, in the first few days with your puppy. If you have a new puppy, and we're actually going to talk about some skills that if you have an adult dog that you can work on that are actually really important. And we'll get to those in a little bit, but I want to welcome everybody. I see lots of people jumping in on the chat. We're trying something a little bit different today. We're going low latency. So I'm hoping not to see any buffering, but I should be able to see your comments a little bit sooner, which I'm pretty excited about. You know what I love also is seeing all the people that are dropping the in the chat. This is the train station, and we do these train stations for you. So if you have a question about puppies, puppy training, even in a little bit, we'll talk about, some adult dog training stuff. We want to hear about it. We want to hear from you what your challenges are, and then we can answer some of these questions. Now,
We're going to do lots of demos tonight, too.
Yeah. I know there's some common challenges that people have when they bring home that new puppy. Like there's a lot going on. Sometimes people feel super overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people get excited about getting a puppy because they're so darn cute and snuggly and adorable. And then you get them home for like 24 hours and you're like, whoa, I totally didn't realize how much work this is going to be and, what a time commitment it is. So hopefully we can give you some tips to make the process a little bit easier. Our goal is to set our puppies up for success so they don't end up learning too many bad things to begin with. And then you can kind of sail through the whole puppyhood thing a little bit more easily. But if you are frustrated or a little bit overwhelmed with stuff, please know that you're not alone. It is very, very common, but that's what we're here for.
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing this episode tonight. The episode's called Puppy Training Basics, Your Introduction to Puppy Training. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. Now, I see some people, lots of familiar faces or familiar names in the chat, as well as some new ones. So if you are brand new tonight for the first time in a train station, just type new. I love doing this. I love doing the shout outs. Where are you guys watching from? I'm always amazed at the different locations that we see people
Mexico.
Joining in from. And I see lots of great puppy training questions in there as well. Now, if you are new here, my name's Ken Steepe. This is Kayl McCann. We're professional dog trainers at McCann Professional Dog Trainers, where we get to help more than 500 dogs and their owners every single week. So it's a pretty exciting place. But McCann Dogs has been training dogs since 1982. And McCann Professional Dog Trainers has helped more than 80,000 dogs. So, I mean, it has been an evolution, essentially.
Yep.
It's been a changing process as, methods change, methodologies change, but the foundation is still there. We all want our dogs to listen off leash, to come when called. We want them to walk nicely at our side. And that's the kinds of things tonight we're going to be setting you up for. We're going to be trying to make sure that you make great choices with your puppy, take advantage of that really malleable time with them so that you're ready. Now, I see some people jumping in. I love reading these. I see Minnesota, Arizona, Florida, Lafayette, Louisiana.
Nice.
UK, Colombia, Guelph, PA, New Mexico, Stony Creek. Awesome. And they keep coming in. And from Melbourne, getting a new Salman Zafar says, getting a husky puppy in 3 days. Well,
nice.
You jumped into the right live stream, Salman, because tonight we're talking all about puppies and being prepared for that puppy training process. As Kayl mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing lots of demos tonight. So I think those of you who really learn by seeing how all of these things work, it's going to be really helpful for you. I've also seen a few questions that were dropped in the chat even before we started the show, which if you're not familiar with the train station workflow, we'll deliver some information and then we'll take a quick break from actually teaching and answer your questions. So as your questions come up tonight, if you think, I've got a great question, or I'd love to know the answer to this question, drop it in the chat and then we'll go back. We'll have a look at what questions have been asked. So let's talk about some of the foundational stuff that we do with our puppies, like some of the things that we do in the first few days with them.
Well, usually for us, when we get our puppies for the first few days, it's all about sort of teaching them about who we are and sort of building a bit of a relationship and a bond between ourselves and the puppy. And a lot of that is built through a lot of as much positive interaction with our puppies as we possibly can. So in one sense, we really set the puppy up so that there's very little opportunity for them to make a poor choice, like choose something or go to the bathroom or things like that. So we're monitoring that side of things. But in addition to that, we're also trying to build value for the puppy wanting to be with us. So we might do a lot of training. I do lots of training in the first couple days of very simple things like teaching them what the word yes means or teaching them what their name is. Maybe playing with me, with and without a toy, all kinds of things just to sort of get the puppy acquainted with me and start to really build a bond and a relationship. Because once you establish that, the other things come a lot more easily.
I'm seeing some amazing questions in the chat, and we're going to get to a lot of these, especially you new puppy owners. Firstly, I want to give a huge shout out. Now, we have a regular train station viewer named Tim from Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Nice.
And he has sent us some pictures. He was working on some confidence building with his shepherd. Do you remember I was showing you that?
Yep.
So Tim mentions
that
tonight.
Amazing apparatus that he built.
Yeah,
so
his
cool.
mom is visiting from visiting from Ohio, and her name is Dora. So I want to say hello to Dora in Tennessee tonight. Now, let's talk about the first skill let's talk about the first thing that we always mention to our puppy training students. And for those of you who have a puppy at home, you know that their attention span is short, their ability, their endurance is short. Their little bellies are relatively small. So you need to keep your training sessions short and sweet and lots of fun. And that's something that we always talk about. Sometimes people work those really type A personalities that want to get all of these things done with their new puppy. They're like, okay, in this next hour, we're going to learn how to sit. And that's not really how it works. We focus on attitude. We focus on the puppy or the dog's attitude when we're training because we want them to enjoy the process. And we really want them to enjoy working with us. We don't want them to ever think, well, I've had enough. So we train puppies for short periods of time. And if you're a new puppy owner, I want you to keep that in mind. What would you say would be the average session of training?
5 to 7 minutes, I would say.
Totally.
Around there.
Yeah, for sure.
And usually what I'll do is for the first couple weeks, not necessarily consistently, but for the first couple weeks, a lot of the time that my dog is getting their breakfast, lunch, dinner as a baby puppy, they're getting hand fed from me. So that might be through training or teaching them their name. I don't do it for every single meal, but for a lot of the meals, I will hand feed the puppy and really get the dog learning how to engage with me for food, since that's the one entity that you have that your dog probably really wants to have. And so it's a great way to kind of get the ball rolling, teaching your dog that you're the bearer of good things. Most dogs like whoever feeds them. So we want to try and let them know that all that great stuff comes from us, opposed to just putting it down on the ground and wasting that wonderful opportunity that you have to really engage with your dog during that time of day.
Something that's really important, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking about some of the times that I've been introduced to an older dog, for example, even if they're not a puppy. Mm-hmm. A lot of the skills we're going to talk about today, if you've just brought home a new dog, maybe you've rescued a dog or whatever your situation is, and the dog isn't like a 16-week-old or 14-week-old puppy, a lot of these principles and skills and things Kayl's going to work on or show you you do the exact same things with an adult dog, because it's a great bond establishing act.
Yeah, if you have an older dog that you haven't really had a lot of training with, or maybe you're just not having a lot of success with them, it's not a bad idea to go back and kind of do some foundational work and treat them as if they are a baby puppy. And you may find that you progress through things a little bit faster than you do than a puppy, because your dog has a bit more worldly experience in some senses. But sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes baby puppies go through a little bit faster because you're not trying to fix anything that the dog's already established as a bad behavior. But there's that silly saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and that's certainly not the case. You can do this kind of stuff with any age of dog, and sometimes even with my trained dogs, I'll go back and do some of these fun little games we're going to show you, because it's just a great way to build value for listening and learning.
Absolutely. Now I'm trying to find the question, but I saw a couple of questions that talked about. So this one, We're about to show you some puppy training exercises, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, but someone asked, what tips do you have for introducing a puppy to a large adult dog? Let's briefly go over that. I'm not sure if our mods are in the stream yet, but we do have a video on the channel called Introducing Your Puppy to Your Other Dog, and that's going to be a really helpful one for you. As we're talking about these training exercises tonight, if you have a multi-dog household and you're working with your puppy, then separate your puppy from those other dogs, because we really want to have our puppy have their entire focus, have their undivided attention. And
think about when you had your very first dog and how much easier it is to engage with that puppy without all those added distractions. So it is a really good idea to do some separation. Puppies bond to other dogs and other puppies much quicker than they do a human. And so when we raise puppies, we have a multiple dog household. And when we get a new puppy, we will separate them for months and months and months and months and months, actually, because we really want to create that tight bond between us and the pup. So that by the time we put the puppy and segregate them or not segregate them, but include them in the other pack of dogs, that dog is excited to be with the other dogs, but they still are kind of going, hey, what are you doing over there? And they're kind of aware of us, and you're wanting to listen to, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, I don't really care about you. All my buddies are here and you're not important. So yeah, it's a really, it's an annoying tip because it's a lot of work, and people don't like to do things that are a lot of work. They like to do things that are really quick fixes. But we assure you, in the long run, it makes a massive difference in the bond and the listening skills that you'll have on your dog.
Absolutely. So why don't we get into loading the yes, and we'll talk about why we use a marker word, the yes, to mark the moment when our dog is right. But when you bring that young puppy home, they don't understand English. They don't know what that word means. So we need to pair that word with something of value. Let them really understand that when they hear that word, it's a really great thing. So we use the word yes. But before we do, and this is something we'll do with all of our puppies, we need to load the word yes. We need to make the puppy understand that it is great. And Kayl's going to show us in just a second how we load the word yes. And it actually transitions into the next exercise really, really easily. So I think this will be a good one for you guys. It also gives me the opportunity, when I go to camera 2, to point at the camera and say, welcome to the train station. Okay, you might need to go back just a little bit. Oh, that's good, I think. Yeah, right there is good.
Somebody's a little excited. Come here, Missy. Okay, so this is a really, really easy exercise. Funky, be quiet. Go and lie down. Go and lie down. Not a good girl. This is a really easy exercise, and what we're trying to do here is create value for the word yes. And it's very, very simple. All you need to do is just work a little bit of word association. So you need to do this. It's best to do this when your puppy's feeling a little hungry, and you can take some of their kibble, or you might want to do this with a more high value reward, some of their favorite treats. And you're simply going to bring them close to you. I would suggest doing this if you're working with a puppy. Funk, stop that, please. We would suggest that you do this with your puppy on a leash, so that, hon, can you deal with that?
Yeah.
So that your puppy can't just work for a few seconds and then wander off and do their own thing. So have your puppy on a leash, and all you're going to do is you're simply going to say yes, and then you're going to give your dog a reward 1 second later. Yes, and then feed. Yes, and then feed. Yes, and then feed. And you're just basically going to continue that process. And basically what you're teaching them is the word yes means something really good. Now, I'm not sure if Ken talked about this when I was getting Hippie out, but the timing of this is really, really important. So I need to be able to say the word, and then within 1 second, give the dog a reward. So if I was to do this, yes, and then feed, too much time will have gone past, and she won't really pair the word yes with the treat. It needs to happen within 1 second. And the most common mistake that we find dog owners make is they do this. Yes. Yes. I'm not sure if you can tell what I'm doing wrong there, but I'm feeding her a little bit before I say yes, or sometimes at the same time. So it really takes away from the value of the word. So I'll finish by showing you correctly. Yes, then feed. Yes, then feed. So if I was to say yes to you and then hand you $100, yes, $100, yes, $100, and I repeated that, you would start to feel really good about me saying the word yes to you. So that's essentially what we do with the dogs. And that way, each time she does something correct, I can mark it with my word yes, and then I can reward her from there. And that just allows me to not have to give her a treat at the perfect time. What I do need to do is say yes at the perfect time. And then if it takes me a couple of extra seconds to get a reward to her, then I'm not losing that great dog training time frame. You're such a good girl. The other thing that's important to note as well is that you want to use a lot of praise with your puppy. So if I say the word yes, I generally will follow that with, good girl or good sit, good boy, whatever she's doing, so that I have a nice happy tone of voice when I'm training. That helps to keep your puppy, oh, that's cute. Oh, cute. That yes. That helps to keep your puppy a little bit more engaged. Now you can play the same type of word association game with using their names. So I could do exactly the same thing. I could say hippie and then reward, hippie, then reward, hippie, then reward, and keep repeating that. And then I could try something like maybe give a little bit of a distraction. So I'm going to throw the food away. Oh, you are just full of tricks right now. I'm going to throw the food away, and as soon as I see that she's got the treat, I'm going to call her name. And because I've done so many name and treats, hopefully she'll whip back around to me. Get it. Hippie. Yes, good girl. Get it. Hippie. Good girl, you know the game already. So I can say her name, and then of course she can whip around in anticipation of a little reward coming her way. So it's a great little game to practice to get the dog's understanding about the word, and then from there you can go on to teach other things. But that's one of the very, very, very first exercises that we do with our puppies when we first bring them home.
Yeah, and maybe just talk about reward placement for a moment. I know you sort of do it naturally, but building into your training where the reward's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things to consider. So a lot of people will say to us, oh my gosh, your dogs pay attention to you. They watch you all of the time. And one of the reasons why they do that is we are very strategic as to where we hold the food when we're rewarding our dog. So if I'm feeding my dog for something, you'll notice that I'm always holding the food between the two of us. And that encourages my puppy to look in my direction. What I don't want to do is a lot of this. Oops, I didn't throw it, babe. Here, it's in my hand. Yes, and reward her over here. I'm basically reinforcing her for checking out, a distraction. I don't want her to think the food magically falls from the sky. I want her to know the food comes from me. So she's looking at me now, but I'm just going to take the food and turn her. Yes, good girl. And then I'm going to reward her for paying attention. Now, the other thing that is extremely important to condition your puppy to do is to always come close to you for the treats. So one of the big things that we see a lot of puppy owners do is the puppy gets close and then they reach down and they grab the puppy to get a hold of them. And unfortunately, when you do that, you're going to start to train your puppy to stay within arm's reach. Stay without being within arm's reach. So what we try to do when we're training our puppies is we make a point of drawing them first before we take a hold of them in any way. So I would have food in one hand, my other hand would be free. I would offer the food to my puppy, but rather than feeding her at a distance, I would pull my hand in close. Good girl. And once she's sort of snacking away on the treat, I can take my other hand and I can slip it underneath to take a hold of her, and then I can reward her. So each time I'm taking control of her, she's also getting reinforced in a positive way, which helps her to understand that when I take a hold of her, she shouldn't run away or deke out of my arm's reach. She should move in pleasantly. So again, if she's at a distance, I'm going to first draw her in close. Then I can reach a hold and reward from there. Good girl. And of course, you don't always have to take a hold of your dog when you feed them, but we want you to try not to be yes and rewarding your dog at a distance. Okay, here.
Great.
I'm going to cough now. So.
Great, really good. Okay, let's jump back into some really important tips. Kayl's dropping lots of knowledge here in the train station. Every opportunity I get to toot the train whistle, I take advantage of it. Now let's see what's happening.
Every opportunity to toot. He does.
I toot as much as possible.
That's right. He likes to toot.
That will be taken out of
He's
context.
a tutor.
Kathy Gifford asks, what breed is that cute little pup? She's adorable, isn't she, Kathy? She's adorable little dog.
She is a toy poodle with a really terrible haircut. So she doesn't really look very much like a poodle because we keep her in a puppy cut. She's 6 years old, so she's not a puppy. But she's awfully small, and she's just as cute and as sweet as you'll ever meet.
And she's
Love her.
She's a great demo dog for puppy stuff. Not only her size, but she's pretty high energy, and
she's
she
very
needs to be controlled.
Wiggly and moves a lot like
really
a puppy.
Great for example.
She's a puppy at heart.
Sheila Gallup has a great question. First night at home, where should the puppy sleep?
Oh,
And we talked a little bit about this in our barking at night.
it's a very smart question.
Yeah, in our crate training at night. But there's a few use a crate with your puppy. The crate is the best management tool that you're going to have. You're going to find that using your crate keeps your puppy out of trouble. It expedites their learning because they're not having these opportunities to make bad choices, to get into trouble, to have accidents in the house, for example. I know we have lots and lots of puppy potty training questions that get asked that if you aren't able to supervise your puppy, they should certainly be somewhere safe and that you can manage them. And a crate is a great place to do that. But we do have a little variation with the crate, the puppy's first night home.
A little bit weird. So one of the things that we find when you're first starting to crate train your puppy is a lot of puppies will be unsettled, or they'll cry, or they'll make noise. And a lot of the time it's just because they want to be close to you. And there's a lot of people that will sort of turn into a bit of a sucker, and they'll let the puppy sleep in the bed with them so that the puppy stops crying. But it doesn't really give your dog a very strong message as to kind of where they should be when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Now, our dogs, as adults, they may sleep in our bed now. But as puppies, they don't. We work until they sort of earn that right by, being good listeners and respectful. And then that's something that we allow them to do. But when they're baby puppies, especially the first couple of nights that they're home, we have them in their crate, and typically what I'll do is I'll clear off anything that's on my bedside table, and I'll literally place the crate on my bedside table so that the crate is like right at my face level, basically. And this allows me to stick my fingers in the crate or to talk to the puppy. We have a king size bed, so I've even actually put the crate on the bed beside me before, and then I wisened up and then put them on the what's that thing called? Bedside table.
Yep. Nightstand.
Yes. And that's where the puppy actually spends the first couple nights. And I find that they settle so much easier when they're there. And then once the puppy is sort of going through the night, which for us only takes a couple nights.
Because of consistency.
That's right. Then from there, the puppy can go on the ground beside our bed, and they sleep there for... What would you say, like the first year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite that long. I mean, it just depends how big they get, what the breed
Beeline she wasn't much of a chewer, so we gave her freedom a lot earlier. Yeah. Funky Monkey, one of our oldest dogs, she was in her crate a lot longer. She's definitely was more of a natural chewer when she was younger.
Yes.
She liked to chew things, so we had to work through that. So it really just depends. There's not really an age limit, but your dog kind of will be your best teacher because you'll be able to tell by their behavior.
Yeah, I love that point. I think that's really important. Alex Mansfield just found the channel the other day, and this video is great as I'm about to get a puppy within the next 2 weeks.
Nice.
Perfect timing, Alex.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a very exciting time when you bring home a new puppy.
I love puppies. I have no
me
desire
too.
to get one right now because we have so many dogs, and all of our dogs are like past puppyhood.
Yes.
But every time I see someone with a puppy, I just want to squeeze them. They're so cute.
They're adorable. Jay Shea 555 says, I have a 12-week-old Dobie and I'm a new puppy owner.
Okay.
He's getting more familiar with the couches. How can you establish boundaries for my little one to stay off the couches?
Great question.
Great question. So first things first, and this may be new information to you, but we use something we call a house line. It's basically like a piece of leash or
a house leash.
A house leash, that will cut the loop off of. And that's going to give you an opportunity to manage that puppy much, much better than you're able to without it. When you talk about establishing boundaries, things like that, it's pretty simple as long as you're there to supervise and you're there to manage that dog. We can talk a little bit about the off maybe, but I think first things first, you need to get a house line on your dog so that it's not a game.
Yeah.
If you need to remove them from the couch, it's not like a fun play game and they get handled and it's so much fun every time I jump on the couch.
Or you get into chasing them or things like that. What you're basically trying to do is we keep a house leash on our dogs until we have complete verbal control of them. Yep. So once we have verbal control of them, which means we can ask them to do or not do anything just simply by command, then we would no longer require the use of the leash. But when the leash is on, that's how we teach them to have verbal control. So if my puppy was going towards the couch to jump on the couch, we use a command called off. and I could tell the dog off, and then I could take the leash and I could redirect the puppy away from the couch and not allow them to jump up and get self-rewarded by jumping up there. So I'm preventing problems by following through with the leash. And then eventually, once you rehearse saying off and then redirecting the dog, several times over and over and over again with good timing, of course, what you'll start to see happen is your dog will start to go towards the couch and you'll say off, and the puppy will just turn and walk away.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go, oh my gosh, my puppy's starting to learn that. And that's starting to show you that you're on the way to getting verbal control. So that's sort of the goal. And that process is used for anything really in the house, but that was just sort of using the couch as an example.
Yeah, that's a great example. I want to welcome Bev Albright to the stream. Welcome, Bev. We've got lots of great questions here. So Jack McTeague says, I'm having issues with my 18-week-old eating her poop when running free in the backyard. Yeah, we usually keep her on a leash out there, but I want to let her run a little so she's quick at chowing it down. Jack, you're not alone in
I hate the poo eating.
I know.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, but you're not alone in...
It's pretty normal.
You're in having this issue with... wanting your dog to have more freedom so that they can run, but then regretting the fact that you've given them so much freedom. And do you want to start on like a long line? Talk about a long line.
Yeah, that's what we do with our dogs. So we have a couple dogs that really like to eat poo. It's just the most disgusting thing in the entire world.
Yes.
Especially now as like the snow's melting, it's just, It's really just the worst. So we work on teaching our dogs a leave it command, and we will attach a long leash or a long line to the dog's collar when they're outside. And that way, and by long, I mean like 25 feet, like really long. So the dog does have an ability to have some freedom, but then we'll watch the dog's behavior. So we're supervising them very closely. And if we can see that the dogs are, sniffing or looking like they're about to get into something, we can tell them leave it. And then we would pick the line up and then we would pull the dog away from wherever the dog is trying to get into. And then we would redirect them. And that
just to interrupt
really
just for a moment.
Well.
So using your leave it, if you're out there, especially with a young puppy, you need to be out there managing them, watching them, giving them information, because they're exploring the world with their mouth most of the time, but they're also going to do whatever they find gratifying. Whatever the thing is that they're doing.
Self-rewarding.
Yeah, they're self-rewarding. So if you're not out there to tell them that it's wrong, then they're just going to assume that it's right. Digging in the yard feels right because it feels good. Peeing in the house, eating poop in the backyard seems right to them. So it's a reinforcing thing. So you need to be out there to give them the information. And if you can manage your puppy really closely, keep a really good eye on them, you'll be able to give your leave it before they even get to that poop. You'll see that they just start making a beeline for that piece of the poop out there, and you can interrupt the behavior. And they're going to start to think, wow, he knew what I was thinking. Like, how did he know? And interrupting at that point, you're much likely to be more successful. So management and supervision are keys here. I know you want to give your puppy more time to run and be free and these kinds of things, and you'll get there, but after lots and lots of good information and great training. So, don't hurry yourself. Don't rush to get there and then regret giving your puppy all that freedom.
Yeah, with the whole poo thing as well, like we would really recommend that you do your best to pick up after the dog right away so that you just don't make your life easier by not having like mounds of distraction, hanging around everywhere. Yep. We try to really diligently pick up after the dogs right away, just for cleanliness issues, of course, as well. But we just find that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. I want to welcome Dan. I just noticed our moderator, Dan, the moderator man, is in the chat.
Is he here?
Doing an amazing job dropping links and answering questions. So if you do have a question about a video, Dan is in the chat just to keep an eye on things and try to help you guys out. Katie Cameron asks, I hand-fed my puppy. She's 11 months old now, and training her is going great, but she never wants to eat out of the bowl now. I think she thinks she can only work for food. That's an interesting point.
Yep.
And meal feeding your puppy or meal feeding your young dog is going to change her mind. She will want that food for sure.
Yeah, you also could take the food and just throw a couple kibbles in the bowl at a time.
Yeah.
So that it's coming from your hand, but then she has to eat it out of the bowl, and then you can start to throw more in at a time until she's eating more consistently. Or if it's more of like a distraction thing, you might need to like feed her in her crate with the door closed, for example, because then she might have less distractions, stuff going on. If we're not hand feeding our puppies are eating their meals in their crates. We probably should have mentioned that before.
Yeah,
we do that for
I do have it on the list.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Maybe we don't want to talk about it now, but we do that to build a lot of high value for the crate because it really teaches the dog that a really great thing happens while they're in there. And sometimes if they're really uncomfortable in the crate, we might even start by feeding them in the crate and keeping the door open. But typically when we have a baby puppy, because we do it right from like the very first day that we get them, we will shut the door and just get them comfortable with it right off the bat.
Yeah, it's such a great tool. And for those of you who are new puppy owners, I'm going to start a series, like a crate training series that does a bunch of little troubleshooting, a few fun games. We do have a couple of great crate training videos on the channel. It's hard to say. It's a mouthful. Crate training videos on the channel, but I'm going to start a new series. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Not only will you get access to our recorded videos, but you'll get access to the train station. And this whistle. I mean, I might be the only one that really enjoys that. But.
I feel like you might be.
Daryl and Luna. Ken and Kayl, we found that recently we needed to use our gentle leader on walks more as we felt that she was taking advantage and seemed to pull again, possibly due to the change of season that we talked about last show. Yeah, Daryl is a frequent viewer of the train station, and that's a really important point. Last week we did talk about the changing seasons. You know, as your puppy gets older, maybe they're really great at response to name or some skill.
There's more smells and stuff out, and especially if you have a really young dog, this might be their first spring. Like maybe they've only been alive when snow's been out and that's what they know, and all of a sudden there's this like green stuff everywhere and mud, and they're like, woo, what's this? This is new. So what's smart about what you've done though is that you've gone back to do something that you know is going to help you be successful. What you don't want to do is keep going for walks and having to like, you know, correct the dog and you know, use a lot of negative feedback with the dog, because that's not productive and it's not fun for you either, not fun for the dog. You don't want to be rehearsing something that's just not working. You want to try to go to something that's going to allow you to have success. And then once you sort of even things out a little bit, you can maybe sort of make it a bit harder by maybe the great thing about the gentle leader, specifically over other head collars, is that you can take the nose piece off and leave the neck piece on. Yeah. And then you can kind of walk her sort of in that middle ground so that the control neck piece is still there, but the added piece of the nose is not. And then if you decide, you know, you need a bit more help, just slip the nose piece back off. But I find that that's an easier transition than having it completely on and then just taking it off cold turkey. We try to do it a little bit more gradually for the dogs, and it's a little bit easier.
Awesome. Now remember, these train station episodes are for you. So if you have a question about puppy training or puppy behavior or puppies in general, drop it in the chat. Puppies. We're getting tons of great questions here, though. Aubrey Lau says, hi, is it possible to train my Aussie to go potty both inside and outside? I have a small patch of grass inside for when I'm away. So the short answer is yes, it's possible, but the
long answer is
no,
you shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't do it. Yeah, we get so many questions on the channel questioning even puppy pads, and it creates so much confusion. Now, if it is a possibility, but it requires so much diligence on your part and so much supervision for your puppy that it just creates a lot of confusion for them when they can really understand that they need to go outside or that they need to hold it. So I highly suggest looking into getting a dog walker or getting someone, maybe a family member or a neighbor or someone you trust, to let your puppy out if you do need to go away for an extended period of time. But for your puppy's sake and for your sake, as you're trying to be successful with them, I would avoid having two spots that they can go potty. It's a question that we actually often get. Shandy Blake has a really good question. My puppy question is, how do I get my husband to agree to get another puppy? Yeah,
say that it will be entirely your responsibility and he won't have to deal with the dog at all. Yeah. Which is probably not true. That's a good one.
Dalida,
just bring it home and see what happens.
Sparacino says, can I give Ham real food as treats? Yes, and we actually encourage it for some exercises. Now, be really aware of what you're feeding your puppy.
Ham's pretty fatty, so I don't know if I would give a ton of like specific ham. Right. But real food, absolutely.
Chicken's a great one.
Great.
Steak,
or
lean steak.
Cut up hamburger, like beef is really good. Chicken is a great one. Yeah. We also will even do like chicken wieners or block cheese. Block cheese, you have to make sure your dog's stomach's okay with that. But I have a dog that's really sensitive stomach, and cheese she has no trouble with. So I'm telling Ken and Kayl because she said I could. So real food is great. I find that is sometimes more motivating than some of the commercial food that's out there because it's very natural and the dogs really enjoy it. But the best thing to do is just to try a few little things at home and just give them a little bit at a time and see how your puppy does with it. But I like to always break a myth that's out there. Some people will say if you give your dog human food that they'll start to be, beg at the table. And those two things have nothing to do with one another. What makes your dog beg at the table is when you feed your dog from the table.
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with what food you're eating. So if you want to give your dog more natural food to give, for training, we would absolutely recommend that you do that.
For sure. Heather's Crafty Life asks, I'm getting a puppy in a month. When she comes home, how often should I take her outside in the night out of her crate? So the first couple of nights, it's a really important step to schedule it. Take her out a couple of times, whether it's maybe, I
would say average for us is 2 times.
Yeah.
I typically don't get up more than 2 times in a night with the puppy. We go to bed kind of late though, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 times. And then I would do that for maybe 2 or 3 nights max. And then the next couple nights, I would only get up once. And then the next couple nights, no more times.
Now, with that said, we do, as we mentioned earlier, the crate is going to be right by the bed. So if your puppy starts to fuss and make noise, you can ask them to quiet or try to get them to settle. If they don't settle, then they might need to go outside.
Yeah.
But it's not on a schedule. So it's really important. This is something that we talk about quite a lot. And for those puppies who think it's a party, if they make noise in their crate, you're going to take them out and you're going to have lots of fun with them. It's all business, especially overnight when you're trying to potty train your puppy, and teach them that they need to sort of hang out comfortably, quietly in their crate, that you don't bring them out and then have a big play session with them. You're just going to take them outside. They're going to go potty, or even if they don't, if you're thinking, the puppy knows that every time they make noise, I take them out, they're just going to go right back into their crate, and you're going to ask them to lie down or whatever, and you can go back to sleep. But make sure that when you're, especially overnight, when you're taking that puppy out, that you don't make it a play session, that you don't make it a fun, happy, bouncy thing, because the puppy's going to learn very quickly. As soon as I make noise, especially at night, it's party time. And I get to come out of this crate and we're going to play fun games. I might get treats, whatever. So all business overnight.
Yeah, the hard part too is that you have to really use your gut in those situations, because if the puppy truly has to go outside, then you need to let them out, and you need to teach your puppy that if they have to go out, that they're going to ask you to do so. You don't want to completely discourage the noise in the crate, and then they learn to have accidents in their crate because they think they're not allowed to tell you that they can go outside.
Right,
but there comes a point where the puppies will do exactly what Ken's saying, and they'll pull a fast one on you because they just want to go out. So, pay attention to your puppy's schedule, be aware of when they've gone last. And what I'll try and do is, if I think that the puppy's whining and it's not an appropriate time, then I might bump the crate a little bit and just tell them to settle, and then I might wait like 10-15 minutes, and then I'll take the puppy out once they've been quiet for 10 or 15 minutes and just see if they have to go. And if the puppy goes outside and they're bebopping around and having a party like you said, then I'll bring them back inside. But and then you can just push the limits a little bit more, little bit more
longer.
Time, a little longer each night that you go.
Yeah, awesome. M. Carpio 9, in the first 2 nights with my puppy, should I take him outside or could I potty train him inside? What would you recommend? I plan to take him out of the crate every 2 hours. Go outside. Without question, I would definitely take that puppy outside. There's a greater differentiation between someplace inside and outside, and ultimately it sounds like you're going to be training your puppy to go potty outside. So that dramatic difference in the environment is going to be helpful for your puppy to learn that that's the only place that they're allowed to
and
go.
Unless you have like a very, very tiny dog, 2 hours you go a little longer. You can go way longer than that. Like I would say 4 hours.
Now, keeping in mind that as soon as you take them out of their crate, before you put them in their crate, you should take them out to potty after a play session and after meals also.
And after they have a nap.
So you're putting them to bed with an empty tank, so to speak. Melinda Miller, who I've seen in the train station here. My 11-month-old puppy still jumps. I keep her on a leash and tell people not to pet her until she's down, but it doesn't seem like she's made any progress. She still jumps for 30 to 40 seconds before she sits. Great question, Melinda. And this is something we talk about, incompatible behaviors and building value for something other than that. And I love the fact that she's focusing on the other people. Like, listen, don't pet. It's not a play thing. Don't pet my puppy. Your puppy's going to find that jumping really, really rewarding. And placing your puppy in that sit position. I think we've got a couple of videos on it, I think. Starting at a greater distance away, really separate yourself from those distractions and rehearse success. Figure out how far away you need to be from these things to be successful, and rehearse that kind of stuff.
Basically, what he's saying is you're letting your puppy jump too long before you're doing something about it. Or maybe it kind of sounds like you're not doing anything about it. Simply having them on the leash isn't good enough. You need to actually do something when the dog goes to jump. So there's a couple actually behaviors that you can look for that's sort of a good indication to you that they're going to jump.
Maybe this would be a good demo.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the dogs will jump, though.
Hippie Shake's a bit of, I mean, if you ask her to, and then you can just show them.
Yeah, okay.
It is a bit of a challenge to get, but I think Hippie might be the one. She's very springy and bouncy if you like excite her and ask her to jump. But it's a great way to demonstrate, how you can just sort of replace her back in position for you, Melinda, really to understand the mechanics of it all. It also gives me an opportunity to send us over to camera 2, which is the train station.
So she's actually going to jump on me as soon as I come on camera here because she's going to be excited.
Yes, she probably will.
So as I come over here, off, I'm just going to take the leash. Good girl. I said off. Can you see me, hon?
Yes.
And I just pulled the leash towards the floor. So let me move around a little
Maybe
bit
you
again.
can do it again.
Oh, good girl. Yes, good choice. And if she offers not to jump, I can reward. So pretend she jumped again so I can sort of show you what I did. I have the leash gathered up, and when I said off, I slid my hand. I'm going very slow so you can see. You wouldn't actually do it this slowly. I slid my hand down the leash. I said off, and I pulled the leash towards the floor. I don't need you to lie down, sweetie, but that's a good girl. And I did it, I sort of popped the leash on the floor just to get her down, and then I very quickly, okay, babe, okay. I very quickly put Slash back in the leash again, because what I don't want to do is keep my dog on a tight leash like this all the time. That's not a very positive experience with the dog. Sorry, babes. So I'm going to use the leash to redirect her, and then I'm going to put Slack in the leash again. Now, Hippie's a very well-trained dog, so I only have to give her minor reminders, and she will behave. But when she was learning, it wasn't uncommon for her to try jumping several times, and I would have to use my little off and correction several times as well, and until she went, oh, this must not be what you want. And then when I got just a few moments of her maintaining control on the floor, and I could complement that by giving her lots of treats and rewards for being in a better position, I was able to make better progressions. And back to what Ken was saying before, if you have a dog that's a bit of a jumper, try not to let your dog run right up to other people. I might come at a distance and give her an alternate behavior. I might ask her to sit, and I want her to maintain that sit as somebody comes close. And if she's a bit of a wiggle bum because she's just too excited, then I can shorten up on my leash and I can position her into a sitting position to help her understand what I want her to do, and then I can try from there. What you want to avoid doing is giving your dog commands over and over and over again and just allow them to completely ignore you. We see a lot of people say, hey, sit, name, and the dog's jumping and pulling at the end of the leash, completely ignoring everything. And they're ignoring everything because they are learning in that moment that you're not going to make them listen. So we recommend you give one command that you want your dog to respond to, and then very calmly follow through and help your dog to assume the position that you're asking. And then from there, put Slack in the leash and see what they do. And a young dog is bound to make multiple mistakes, and that is okay. You're just going to very calmly reposition them or correct those mistakes, and then complement it by being very generous with your reward. But again, back to what I said at the very beginning of the live stream. In our method of dog training that we use with McCann's, our goal is to set the dog up so that when they are learning something, they're more likely to do it correct than to set them up into a situation where we know they're going to fail over and over and over again. That's not a good way to dog train. So if I know that I'm dealing with a dog that's incredibly wiggly, overexcited, doesn't have really good self-control, I'm not going to walk her up within 2 feet of a person knowing that there's a pretty big chance that she's going to lose her excitement and then make some bad choices. So I might stop with her a little bit further away, and she might not get to go and greet people, for a little while until I have a bit better control. And then I can slowly start to break that threshold and go a little closer until I'm able to be close to a person and my dog is still making good choices. But that means I'm basing things more on reward rather than setting her up in a situation where I'm going to have to correct her. And if that happens, that happens. But that's not going to be my go-to. I don't want to have to do that if possible. Okay, Heather?
I wonder if you can go. Can you go right into luring with her? Go just
Yes.
yeah. So something that I guess we can stay on camera too, and you can see Hippie is a bit of an acrobat.
She likes to be a parrot.
Now I see Dan, our moderator, has asked a question. Kayl and Ken, can you speak to settling a dog in their crate for those viewers wondering what to do when it isn't a potty issue in the night? And Dan, I just found the video on our channel. It's if you search the channel and it's stop barking in crate at night. It's sort of a 3-step process, but there is a video on the channel for that. Now, one thing that we talk about with our puppy, you know what I just noticed? This really makes me really sad. Look at how I think I'm getting a bald.
Nobody can see you right now.
Yeah, they can. I think I'm getting a bald spot. This is the worst. This is just the worst thing.
I knew that ages ago.
Did you? I hadn't really noticed it before. Oh, well, continuing on with the
still
train
marry you.
station. Oh, good. Thank you. So we are talking about luring. Now, luring is something that you can do with your puppy. Why don't I go back to camera 1 just for a second? And I'm going to just hide the shiny spot that I just recognized on the overhead camera. Luring is something that we do with our puppies to teach them that there's value in following food. Teach them that to build a little bit of work drive. And we're going to break it down into little tiny processes. But this kind of thing is foundational for teaching your dog to walk in at your side. Really, this is a great example. I don't know if they can see past the pop filter. Let's move this thing out of the way. But this kind of thing, I mean, it's confidence building. You can move your puppy into an unusual position.
Trying to get her to put her feet on the armchair.
Yeah, she's doing pretty good. But using luring is such a great way to show your puppy that if they put in a little bit of effort, that they'll be rewarded. So you are of more value that way. Maybe if we go to camera 2, you can just show some of like the turning and some of the simple exercises that we do. And before I send you over there, train station.
So one of the methods that we do to train our puppies to learn how to do different behaviors is something called luring. And basically what it is when you take a piece of food, you put it on your puppy's nose, so right in front of them so they can sniff it. And even when they're baby puppies, I'll even let them lick it. Actually, one of my favorite treats to use with baby puppies is processed cheese. And the reason why I like it so much is it gets all stuck to my fingers, and then the puppies just sort of lick it off my hands, and it helps to keep them continually engaged. So there's a little McCann tip for you. Tip. So I'm going to put the food on her nose, and I'm simply just going to move it around. And if she follows it, which she's really enjoying right now, I would very often say yes, and I would let her have the piece of food. I'm going to try another one. And this is how we would teach things like sit. So I might lure her head up above her feet or her chest towards the ceiling, and that will get that sitting position. I might lure her nose to her toes to get a down position. I might lure her nose directly up and away to get a standing position. We also can teach lots of tricks this way. So I could teach her to chase her tail. Yes, good girl. Both ways, of course, so they don't get dizzy. Good girl. Not really. They don't actually get dizzy. I also could teach her to stand on her hind legs. I wouldn't do this with a baby puppy. I would wait till they're more grown. But you can teach them to do all kinds of things with this act of luring. I could also teach her to sit beside me, and I can reward her in position. I could also work on teaching her to move on a loose leash. So I could have the leash in my hand, and I could use the food to follow her around. Good girl, yes. I could pull her towards me. I could teach her to move into me with the luring. So yes, good girl. There's all kinds of things that I can do with this method to keep her engaged. And I would practice several different exercises with my puppy each training session that I have involving this concept of luring.
Awesome. And back we go. I can't emphasize enough how valuable those luring exercises can be, especially with a new puppy. It's building in just a little bit of work drive. It's really showing your puppy that you are worth listening to, that they are rewarded for putting in just a little bit of effort, and that kind of thing can really speed up your training process, can really elevate your status for your dog. It's really important. I don't want you to to think that it's just for trick training or something like that. Now, I know there was a question, a multi-stage question. It looks like Arch AIC Birch says, a 17-week-old lab doing great. Training's going very well. I have a neighbor down the street that has a beautiful female Rottweiler who walks 1 to 2 times a week. The Rottweiler owner has no control over the dog. The owner is abusive. The Rottie pulls the owner to the fence and fence fights with all dogs along their route. So owner's so overpowered that he can do nothing until he wants the dog to move.
Owner needs the dog needs a gentle leader.
Yeah.
Is what the dog
owner
needs.
yells, the dogs for barking, hyping up. Yeah, so this is, fence fighting, it can be a real challenge. Now, this is something that you need to do is not allow your dog to rehearse this. So avoid the neighbors. Now, if it's like your next door neighbor, I would literally put up a tarp. I would put something up, a divider that your dogs can't see through, so that you don't have to worry about what's going on back there. So they're less likely to see one another, because you don't want to encourage that behavior. But as an owner, if it's not your next door neighbor, then avoid that situation. There's nothing you can do to compel that owner to be a better dog owner. There's nothing you can do. So you have to do everything you can. It's a hard situation. It is a really hard situation. But you need to do everything you can to help your dog to be right, and to help your dog to be successful, and to make sure that your dog isn't, super hyper responsive or feeling stressed or feeling threatened. So avoid that corner, avoid that situation as best you can. Maybe it means driving past the house to the park, driving to, a farm field, something. Just don't allow the dogs to rehearse that behavior.
It certainly is frustrating that you have to make such a change because your neighbor's being a bit of a Dinkelheimer Schmidt, but we sometimes need to make sacrifices for the greater good of our dogs. And, having a little bit of effort to sort of change the scenario for your dog is actually going to be a better outcome than if you sort of just say, oh, this is just too much to deal with, and you don't really deal with it, and your dog learns to have bad behavior. So it's a crappy situation. I feel bad for you, but there are a few ways that you can do.
Yeah, you can do everything you can to make sure that your dog doesn't rehearse that. Yeah. So really take control of this situation, because it sounds frustrating, and I can only imagine what it's like. Patricia Moore, my German Shepherd, is 16 weeks old and has been doing great with potty training until a gigantic male pit bull moved in next door this week. Now she refuses to poop outside. How can I change that? So these are some pretty specific, unique questions, but you make sure, Patricia, you're out there with your puppy. We talk about management when you're going out during potty training. I would find, create as great a distance. Again, maybe that suggestion I had for the last comment or the last question would be helpful for you as well. You create some sort of visual divider. It
sounds like your puppy's just distracted. I don't think it's specific to the dog being
It could be, yeah, for sure.
We love pit bulls, by the way. So, yeah, it sounds like you just need to work through a little bit of distractions, maybe try to go a little bit further away or change the location, or maybe watch your timing in which you have to go outside. But it's not uncommon for things to happen like that when you have a baby puppy.
Dan, our moderator, Dan says, what do they say? The camera removes 10 pounds of hair.
With Hippie.
This may be the case.
She needs a haircut real bad. Oh, yeah, right. With your bald spot.
Yes. Question from
hippie hair.
I know. That happens every show.
I know.
Alfie Mercer, is it bad to let your dog sleep with you? Well, this is not a helpful answer, but that depends. The helpful part of this answer is, if you don't need to supervise your dog, if you don't need to manage them overnight.
Your dog has verbal control.
If your dog has great verbal control. And this is sort of the litmus test for us, is if our dog will respond immediately to the off. We have an off command that means get off of whatever the thing is that you're on. But if they'll respond immediately with the off, then they've earned the right, or they've earned the opportunity to get onto stuff on the couch, on the bed, on these things. If you do it too early, if you give them these opportunities too early, then it can become a real leadership struggle sometimes. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to encounter that. It's so much easier, and it's such a more streamlined training path if your dog sees you as a great leader. So if your dog at home is listening to you, you have great verbal control.
They have a good recall.
Great recall for sure, and listens to you when you ask them to off.
Leash.
Yeah.
But what I don't think people realize is that things like giving your dog luxuries, like letting them be on the couch and letting them sleep in the bed and letting them have access to resources whenever they want to, is directly related to the type of behavior you get when they're at the park or when they're in the backyard or when they're in the house. And sometimes, you can train them to walk better and to come better, all of those things. But sometimes doing something as simple as changing the resources and the control that you have with the dog in the house, that alone can actually improve your dog's listening skills, because it's all about leadership and control. Not that we're insinuating they have to be a big drill sergeant all day long. It's not about that. It's just about creating a little bit of clarity for your dog, and by having follow through. So when you ask your dog to do something, you expect them to listen, and when they don't, you do something about it. And just being like that will help to sort of teach your dog that they have to be a good listener. And you will see through your dog's behavior when when you're ready to give them more freedom and more luxuries. And if you want one of those luxuries to be sleeping in bed with you, go for it.
Yeah.
But you want them to be earning that right first.
We have a video on the channel. It's called leadership training or leadership training tips or something like that. I think that would be a great for all of you puppy owners. If you haven't seen that video yet, definitely check it out after you watch the stream today. After the train station's over, definitely check out that leadership tips video, because it's really sort of the big picture of dog training. And I can tell you, you're going to get better results. You're going to get results faster, and your puppy is going to understand what you expect of them if you're a great leader. Puppies really need that kind of thing. They need good direction, and that leadership video will really sort of set you up to be in a good place to be a great leader for your dog. Good question though, Alfie. Bev Albright, do you recommend the bells at the door to go out? Not necessarily. I mean, some people use bells.
To each his own.
Yeah, for sure. As long as your potty training is consistent, whatever that is. And we teach our dogs to indicate for us. Some dogs that might be come and sit in front of us. I mean, there's all sorts of...
we teach our dogs to indicate by coming to us.
Yes.
We don't teach them to go to the door. Because although our dogs know to go to the door when we're in the room where the door is, but if we're not in that room, then our dogs will typically come to us and give us some type of cue that they have to go outside. But a bell does work as well. We don't do that with our dogs, but it's not that it doesn't work. It just, we don't use it with our family. But lots of people have a lot of success with it as well. So it is an option.
I like this question. Jody WO, my puppy gets overly excited when other family members get near her. She won't calm down or be distracted. Sounds like she's just too distracted. She jumps, nips, scratches. You may have jumped in late on the stream, Jody W, but we talked a little bit about using a house line, and I think that's going to be really helpful for you to take control and be able to guide your puppy away from that situation. Now, knowing that your puppy gets super excited when family comes near, you need to train that. You need to train like that response to name when family's 20 feet away. If your puppy starts to get excited when those people are 10 feet away, you need to start training when they're 20 feet away and get some rewards in. Then 15 feet, then you get some rewards in. You really need to build on a solid foundation of success. That's going to help your puppy understand what the right choice is. And you have your house line on with them if they make the wrong choice, and you can just guide them away. It doesn't have to be challenging. Now, Ms. Knickknack 30, great question. How many times of day for training? How many times in the day would you say you're training the puppy?
Ooh, I train the puppy a lot of times throughout the day. But what we really recommend is lots of short periods of time, multiple times a day. And also integrating, the best thing you can do is to integrate your training sessions into your everyday interaction with your puppy that you're already doing. So basically, a day in the life of a puppy in our house would be, we take them outside, we take them out of their crate in the morning, we take them outside for their morning pee. We might do a couple responses to name outside. We might do a little bit of play. We might come inside and start to make breakfast while the puppy's in the kitchen with us, and we'll work some more, training behaviors while I'm waiting for breakfast to be ready. And then once we sit down to eat our breakfast, the puppy's going to go back in its crate for a few minutes so that we don't have to worry about, managing the puppy at the same time. Then I might do a little bit more, and then the puppy goes in their crate. We go to work. We come home, get the puppy out, do a little bit more with them, tire them out a little bit, put them back in the crate, eat dinner, get the puppy back out again. So they're in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out all day long. But when they're out, we're doing something with them. So our puppies they're not allowed when they're babies to just be around our house doing whatever they want. They're always with us and they're doing something. We're managing them, we're watching them, we're training them as to what to do in the house. And if we need a break from that because it is a lot of work, then we'll happily put them away in their crate. And that's basically how they live their life as a puppy until their skills start to get better. They start to get better listening skills, and then they spend more time out of their crate because it's easier to manage them when they know how to sit and lie down and stay and all those types of things. And then eventually we will wean off of the crate. In the house altogether, our dogs are still crated in our car and at work and things like that. But yeah, that's sort of how we do it. It works great.
A couple of people have asked how to teach your dog to ask to go outside. I saw Tim Russell asked, how do you teach a cue to go outside? I just dropped a link in the chat. It took me forever to try to get there, and I wasn't able to add like any text to it, any copy to it. But if you click that link, we do have a video for teaching your dog to ask to go outside. This is probably a good one that we should touch on really quickly before we move to the last thing. Submissive peeing, a training issue. It's gotten better since we got her, but still happens every so often. Now we just manage it by making sure she goes before we put her in a particular situation. I love the training thought. I love thinking ahead.
Yeah, that's good. It's not a training issue. Most of the time when puppies are peeing because of their being submissive, they don't even know that they're doing it. So we would recommend that you don't even correct your dog for it because they often they don't even know that they're doing it. But it's something that they get better with age, but they also can get better with it more quickly if you are interacting with the puppy appropriately in those moments when they tend to feel like they need to submissively pee. So make sure that when you or your family or your friends are interacting with a puppy that they're not leaning over top of the dog in too much of a dominant way. That high squeaky puppy voice that people like to talk to puppies in, that's the worst for submissive peers. Speak in just a normal tone of voice. Try to avoid the, oh, hi puppy, you're so cute, like that whole thing. Then that makes it really hard for puppies. Be calm around the puppy rather than getting them really excited. Of course, making sure that they've gone to the bathroom if they're going to be greeting and playing with other people. But they do tend to get a little bit more self-control as they get older, but you certainly can make the process go a lot faster by doing some of those tips.
Yeah, great. Now, one of the things we want to talk about when we're talking about brand new puppies in training your puppy is using your crate. We talked about it a little bit. I mentioned that we're going to be creating a series on the channel all about crate training because there's so many different aspects to crate training. We get so many questions on the channel. I feel like I'm typing, a lot.
It's an important topic.
It's a very important topic, and it's an important thing for managing your puppy. Because we talked about your puppy's exploring the world. They're making decisions on their own if you're not there to give them information. But when you can't supervise your puppy 100% of the time, they should be in their crate. Not only does it keep them safe, because we hear the horror stories. I mean, with all of the students that come in every week, people will say, I had this thing happen where I wasn't paying attention to my puppy and this happened. So use your crate. Use your crate to manage your puppy to keep them out of trouble. And then we'll tell our student about how important the crate is. And now I get it. Now I understand. I totally understand why you said to use a crate.
I don't know how you would raise a puppy without a crate. I would go crazy.
Yeah, well, it's just not fair to the puppy, and it's not fair to you because there are times when you have to
have a life.
You have to grab a shower.
To do, yeah,
or you need to, pay attention to a family member or do something. And the best thing you can do as a trainer is put your puppy somewhere that they're safe, relaxed, comfortable, so that they can rest. And then the next time they come out, it's all about quality time. And Mr. Blue said, not only is Mr. Blue going to be a grade 1 student on Monday, but Mr. Blue asks, should puppies be crated if they're being aggressive and nipping? And if your puppy's being aggressive and nipping, you are going to train through that. You're going to address those issues, address the nipping issues. And for sure, if you aren't supervising your puppy, they should definitely be in their crate. And that's not just if they're nipping or in those kinds of things, but that's definitely a good reason. It's definitely a good reason to have more leadership, manage them better.
What you don't want to do, though, is put your puppy in the crate when they do those things, because that's going to do two things. It's going to create the crate to be a negative place, which we don't want. And number two, it's not going to solve your nipping and biting. Dogs do not understand that when they nip and bite, you put them in a crate. That's a discipline. They don't know how to put those things together in their mind like a human would. So you need to learn how to properly correct your dog for nipping and biting, and we will absolutely be able to go over that with you in your grade 1 program. We also have a video on how to stop nipping.
I think Dan shared it.
Okay, perfect. Which I think maybe you'll find very valuable. Once you've addressed the nipping and the dog being a bit bratty, then if you have had enough in that moment, then you can happily put your dog away in the crate, just to, to stop that rehearsals, to stop that vicious circle of the dog, being a bit naughty and you having to correct them. So, but you do not want to ever use the crate as a form of discipline. The crate needs to always be your dog's, bedroom, their place where, it's their place to hang out and feel safe and feel, calm and those types of things. And we don't want to be using the crate as a form of discipline. And most importantly, it doesn't work. Dogs don't understand that you're putting them in there because dogs, you can't time out a dog like a human. They don't understand that. So it's not worth your time anyways. Hey.
Yeah, good question and great answer. Taylor Braddock, hello. Glad to have gotten here in time. No question. Just wanted to say I've been following all of your advice and from 6 to 7 weeks old past this week. I've made huge leaps in progress. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you could join us, cool. Taylor, just in time. But I think this was a fun one. It was nice to be able to show off all of those exercises and tips and stuff with all of that.
A lot of
training.
good questions today.
Yeah. I also discovered that I'm going bald. That was a downer.
You're gonna have to shave your head now.
I might have to. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for joining us. We love this opportunity. We love hearing from you guys, especially when it's in the chat, helping you out from all over the world. I saw people from all over Brazil and all sorts of places, which is so much fun that we get to help you guys out. I know as a dog training student, when I first went to McCann Dogs, that as I learned the McCann method, it can, there can be so many different things you have questions about. So this is the opportunity. We want you guys to ask us those questions. We'll answer as much as we can, and having you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member is our goal. You can do so much more with a dog that listens.
And don't forget too, if you're not in our area for, to take classes, we see lots of our in-house students on the chat, but if you live far away and you're looking for a little bit more direction, we do offer online classes as well. We have a great online program called My Dog Can, which, really covers a lot of the things that we talk about every single week, that you can, get some great advice for your dog.
For sure. Yeah. If you're looking for more personalized training than we can give you in our Q&A sessions here on the channel, then check out the link in the description of the video to My Dog Can, and we can help you online. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to have a well-behaved four-legged family member, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week, and we get to hang out here in the train station, and you don't want to miss an episode.
Nope.
And you don't want to miss a train toot. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. It was lots of fun, tons of great questions. I can't wait to see you guys in the chat next week. And on that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Kayl.
Happy training. Bye for now, guys.
See you next week.
Thanks for watching.